Hello and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to give a bit of a preview, if you will, as to the kinds of content I'm going to be making once Chaos Origins drop, and give you a bit of an idea as to which types of decks in particular you can expect to see content for on the channel. I've mentioned this in comments quite a lot, but I can't really do my best work when it comes to cooking without the physical cards in my hand. For some reason, the simulators just don't click with me in quite the same way, and my best work happens when I'm sat at the dining room table at 2 o'clock in the morning, cooking up with physical cards, much to my wife's dismay. Right, I'm still awake at 2, 3 a.m., particularly after a new set drops. But we work how we work, right? So I want to give you a bit of a sneak preview, because it's not that I've not been cooking, right? I said I do my best work, not all of my work, with physical cards. So the decks you can expect to see content for, and I will give you a bit of a sneak preview as to each as we go through. But the Medius decks, in particular, Archmage, Power Patron, as well as an updated Elfnote lists, you can expect to see quite a lot of content on those two decks in particular. I have an Elfnote Centurion list and an upgraded Elfnote Centurion list, which got quite a lot of traction, and I know there's I don't know if I'd be big-headed enough as to say a lot of people, but certainly more than zero. I appreciate all of you, by the way, excited to see what does full power Elfnote looks like. So I will be definitely making videos on the Medius decks. Don't know if I'll cover Doom Z, purely because I feel like Doom Z is largely solved, but if I do feel like there's something we can do with Doom Z that people aren't yet talking about, maybe leaning into the Power Patron side of things, because I do think the Power Patron hybrid decks are far better than they're currently getting credit for, then I will revisit Doom Z. Ritual of Light and Darkness, I won't lie to you, I'm going to be going all in on this deck. Slight spoiler alert, I think this deck is currently really underexplored, and that sounds ridiculous when we consider it's been out in the OCG for a while, but the OCG don't seem to share the TCG's appetite for ridiculous mashups. This is a highly splashable engine. I will give you a bit of a sneak preview later on that. I'm also going to be covering Aleister, the new Invoked cards. I already have 3 of every card. I actually wasn't going to cover this deck initially, but then it was a mixture of one of the comments on a previous poll talking about Invoked, and I thought, actually, yeah, I actually really like Invoked. I then looked on the pre-orders, and the Invoked cards will go in like really cheap. I literally sold one Magic the Gathering card, right? And it paid for the whole Invoked core, so rude not to. Spoiler alert, again, there will be an element of trying to splash. I'll be looking at pure Invoked, but then also what can we splash with the Invoked cards, because I do think the engine, in a pure sense, while it's a very consistent engine, I don't know if the end boards, again, if we're talking pure, I don't know if the end boards are quite strong enough. And then finally, the chess archetype, which was by far the most popular option on the poll. Thank you to everybody who voted. But again, this is a highly splashable archetype, and as you probably know well enough by now from watching the channel, I do appreciate a good engine, right? a good mishmash of engines that work well together. Anyway, let me give you a bit of a sneak preview as to each of the decks. Now, we have to start with Angelechy opening to e4 if we're going to talk about the chess archetype. Reason being, it is a turn 0 play that I think we're probably going to see a lot of, and it's quite disgusting. If you don't know what this does yet, I'll just quickly show you, because I think this is very relevant basically, and a big part of why this is, again, just my prediction, going to be surprisingly popular. So let's just pretend they're going first, right? So we're going to set it, we're going to pass turn, and then it's like they've gone first. I just want to show you what this can do as a turn 0 interaction. So if your opponent goes first, activate this card during the standby phase of the first turn. place one Angelechy field spell from your hand, deck, or graveyard, face it on your field, and if you do, special summon one level 2 or 7 Angelechy monster from your extra deck to the extra monster zone, and if you do, place an Angelechy monster from your extra deck in the spell and trap zone as a continuous spell. You're then locked into synchro monsters. Oh no, what a shame. So the reason this is so, I'm trying to think of a better word than evil, to be honest, right? I'll show you now, because we passed turn, sorry, nearly surrendered. We passed turn, so right, let's just pretend they've gone first. We activate it, alright? So this is their standby phase, they've gone first. We place a field spell, and then we're going to special summon a pawn, and then we will place on the field the Bastion. Bastion will trigger, placing another one, right? We'll place the Shatranga, which is the king. So it's the rook and the king, right? They're all chess monsters. And now we will activate the trigger to add a trap. Doesn't really matter which, right? For the sake of what we're trying to show. So what's important here is, this is all just going on without us, right? What's important here is that we replaced the card in our hand. So it's a free, in a sense. You're locked into synchros, but it's a free floodgate effect because it replaces itself during their turn. And what it does is the Bastion basically means that while it's a continuous spell, other Angelechy cards on the field cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects. So it's Angelechy cards, full stop. Monsters, field spells, anything that says Angelechy. The king, and this is the nasty bit, while this card is treated as a continuous spell, your opponent can only attempt to activate. So not that they can only activate, they can only attempt to activate up to 5 monster effects per turn. So as a turn 0 interaction, you put in this floodgate onto the field, and these can't be destroyed either. So off the top of your head, somebody might think, well, that's easy. I'll commit to getting 2 effect monsters onto the board. I'll make an SP Little Knight. SP Little Knight banishes the king, and then in under 5 interactions, I've got rid of the floodgate. What's all the fuss? But the problem is, was getting 2 effect monsters onto the board and making an SP Little Knight, is that part of your turn 1 combo? By going down that particular route and making a Little Knight, just for argument's sake, right, there's other ways to out this, but by making a Little Knight, have you basically made your end board not as good, right? Have you now made a substandard end board? Is your end board now poorer as a result of having to commit to this particular line? And the same goes for any other potential outs, like Cool Tune can out this on effect number 5 with the, I forget which Cool Tune monster it is, but it can negate a face-up card, right? So on effect number 5 specifically, it can do that, but then, again, is that what they wanted to do? What does that mean for the rest of their end board if they've had to commit to getting this off the board or nullifying this one way or the other in 5 monster effects or less? Because this is also a very, very splashable archetype, what this means is that, and I will show you some examples, you'll be having to deal, if they go first, you'll be having to deal with this floodgate, this protection of the floodgate, on top of an additional board as well. So now you're having to break a fully established board with other negations, with other effects, etc. And you're trying to do it in under 5 monster effects or less. I think this is going to be a very popular and honestly quite toxic archetype. So it's something it's something you need to be aware of. Going second, sorry, if you're going first and they're going second, you get hit with this as a turn 0 floodgate setup. What's your plan, basically? Because, like I say, even if your deck can out this, does outing this turn 1 basically mean you're putting up a really poor board, right? What if they activate Fuwalos and then you're under Fuwa and they activate this? So it's just, I think this is going to be very popular, very toxic, very evil, and yeah, can't wait, to be honest. Absolutely can't wait. So let me give you an example of what I'm talking about when I talk about a splashable floodgate engine, right? Because that's effectively what this is. If you can make a level 8 synchro, you can go full chess combo. Where it gets interesting though is what if one card is full chess combo and combo for a different archetype as well, all from that one card starting point. As an example, we activate the effect of Junk Meister, revealing a Stardust Synchro card in our extra deck. Activate the effect to get a copy of Junk Armor, which is basically Junk Poplar, right? It's been added to your hand, so we can special summon him. We will use his effect to tribute himself and special summon the Stardust Synchron. Now this bit's optional, but you can then activate the effect to get yourself a Junk Signal. Because if your opponent activates a card or effect in response to a Synchro monster's effect, you can negate it. So if they activate anything in response to a Synchro monster's effect, you can negate it. So that could be Forbidden Crown, right? This can be an out to Forbidden Crown. So optional, because it's not something you necessarily want to draw. Maybe something you decide in going first. Anyway, not the main point of what we're trying to do here. So what we'll do from here is we will Synchro 8 into Glitch, Clutch, Null Gainer. This may as well read Glitch, Clutch, Angelechy, because as it hits the board, we can search for a level 8 or higher monster with 0 attack, and that will be Witness of the Ancients, aka Witness of the Angelechy. Make sure you get these cards if you haven't already, by the way. I have a sneaking suspicion they will increase in price. So from here, we activate Witness of the Angelechy. We special summon it because there's a Synchro monster on our field or in the graveyard. And then as it triggers, we can set up to 3 monsters from our extra deck face up in our spell and trap zone. But we're only going to do 2 because it will then create a token that matches the level of the thing that you've just, the amount of monsters you've just summoned, basically, or placed in the spell and trap zone. So we'll go Destria and we'll go Shatranga specifically. We're only going to do 2 for now, and then we get a level 2 token. So we'll activate the triggers of both. So Shatranga will search for a copy of Disturbance, and we will get the field spell with Destroyer. So we'll activate the field spell, and we will pitch Disturbance specifically because it does have value in the graveyard. Now that will allow us to special summon one of our chess monsters to the field and then place a chess monster in our spell and trap zone. So now we have the Bastion, which is our protection, and you've got the full lock basically. So they take burn damage every time they activate an effect, or the effect resolves. Slight technicality, but that can matter. We've got, they can only activate or attempt to activate 5 monster effects in a turn, and of course these can't be destroyed. No Angelechy cards, full stop, can be destroyed. What can we do from here? So we're going to banish Disturbance, and that will add a copy of Opening to E4, which is just more card economy, right? Look at our board and we've got more cards in our hand than what we started with. Now from here, what we're going to do is we're going to go Auxilla. How rude of me. From here, what we're going to do is we're going to tribute the pawn to get a Stardust Synchron back onto the field. Now we go into Auxilla. Activate the trigger effect to get a copy of Stand Up Centurion. We're going to make a light Chaos Angel. It's not a light and dark, but the light is actually the better of the effects in my book. We won't activate the trigger effect of Chaos Angel. Now we're going to go Stand Up Centurion. We're going to pitch the Ojama Pink, which is just fodder, right? We've still got more cards in our, well, the same amount of cards as what we started with, plus 3 other unknowns. You'd play this as a hand trap deck, basically, because there's no room in your spell and trap zone. You'll see why in a moment. So we're going to place Trudeia. Trudeia. We'll summon. It's going to put itself back into the spell and trap zone as long as a copy of Primera. Special summon Primera. Trigger effect to get a copy of Wake Up. We will activate the Wake Up, making itself level 8. And we will make a Crimson Dragon. So I'm going to target the Auxilla to make a Cosmic Blazar, and we'll get ourselves a copy of Synchro Rumble. Again, it's optional. I think there's plenty of targets for it, right? There's plenty of things you can do here. But yeah, it's optional. I just want to show what can be done from a single card as a starting point. And so from here, you'd have 3 other cards still in hand, right? This was a 1-card combo with a discard. There was other discards happened, but of course the engine generated free value for us. So we've now got 6 cards in our hand as we pass turn. We've done all this and actually generated card advantage in the process. Our hand size has increased, not gone down. So what we'll do is we'll go to the end phase. We will activate the effect of Auxiliar to get ourselves the Primera. So our opponent starts doing things, right? We're not going to negate that, but what we'll do now is summon both of these, increases level by 4, triggers stand up, making a Crimson Dragon again. We will activate Crimson Dragon. Maybe you go for, you know, a Stardust Seafer this time. You do need a Stardust monster in your extra deck. So if you have this, you can lose the Stardust Dragon, right? Frees up a bit of room because the extra deck would be pretty tight in a full version of this build. And then now, let's just take a look at this, right? We've got a Chaos Angel, so none of these can be affected by monster effects. We've got 2 separate negates. We've got an additional 3 cards in hand, right? You'd play this as a hand trap deck, so you have to imagine there's a hand trap in there somewhere. Auxiliar is protecting these, but so is Bastion. So even if they manage to out the Bastion, you've still got Auxiliar protecting the Floodgate lock. So they basically have to out this board in less than 5 monster effects. Think about that, right? They have to break this in less than 5 monster effects. So you can just sit tight, right? Hand traps in hand, 2 negates on the board. You can just kind of sit tight and only disturb the things that you need to disturb. Even if they out one of the protections that's protecting the king, there's another then protecting the king. So in less than 5 monster effects, they need to out 2 separate protections. Not to mention, it gets worse by the way, not to mention the Siffer Dragon does have an additional protection effect. The first time each card, that's disgusting, the first time each card you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not. So in less than 5 monster effects, bear in mind none of these are affected by monster effects, in less than 5 monster effects they need to basically checkmate the king, right? They need to out the king, and there's 3 separate protections going on, and I just think this is foul, to be honest. I think this is absolutely foul, and this is one of many different kind of 1-card combos bridging into full chess combo Floodgate on top of the other or another archetype as well. So moving on to Invoked. Now, the eagle-eyed amongst you will be thinking, but that's a Fiendsmith card, and I do think that this is probably going to be one of the better engines. It's not the only engine I'll be exploring, but I will be exploring supplementary engines for the new Invoked cards because the pure stuff is fun, and I think an archetype as old as Aleister, you know, normal summon Aleister, I think it deserves that I at least try to make it work as a pure version. But I do think realistically in the modern game, the end boards it can create probably aren't quite layered enough, probably isn't quite enough. And I think cards like Fiendsmith or engines like Fiendsmith can just give it that extra little bit of oomph. So just to give you a bit of a snapshot as to why Lacrima might be something you want to consider being your next main normal summon over the old Aleister, I would probably only run one of the old Aleister, to be honest. The new Aleister can special summon himself from hand, and that's the difference, right? You're not quite clogging yourself up with normal summons in the same way. So we will activate the trigger effect. Let's just say we're dumping the trap, right? Doesn't really matter what we're going to dump because it's not actually about the Fiendsmith portion. So don't start raking me in the comments over, oh, you didn't sequence the Fiendsmith, no, the Fiendsmith stuff properly. It's more about what happens next, basically the end point of the Fiendsmith stuff. So we will use Requiem to summon a copy of Engraver, and we will attach we will make a Necro Equip. And we're going to bring back the engraver, make a sequence, use the effect of sequence, and then we use the trigger to send AOS, Divine Spirit of the Law, one of the new cards coming out in Chaos Origins. Link 3 for Agnum Day, and now because a fusion monster's gone to the graveyard, this will trigger our AOS. We can activate it to add either an Aleister the Invoker or an Aleister the Reminiscent to hand, and then get an additional normal summon for it. And so that's why this is, in my mind, one of the better supplementary engines, because now we can, from here, you know, we've got Fiendsmith stuff on the go, right? We've got Fiendsmith stuff in rotation. Obviously, you could have sequenced this differently, right? Maybe not send the trap, but again, it's not actually about the Fiendsmith side of things in particular. And from here, you've managed to get your Aleister on the board, and you'll have 4 other cards in hand as well as this. And so, as a bit of a sneak preview, I am going to be taking a look at the Invoked deck and basically trying to understand what is the best supplementary engine, and is there a better supplementary engine than Fiendsmith, because right now I'm struggling to look past Fiendsmith as the engine to pair it with, in all honesty. Now, the Medius section I'm intentionally keeping short, just because if I start waffling about Medius and Power Patron decks, I will still be here this time tomorrow. I'm trying to keep this video, you know, somewhat short, right? It's supposed to be a preview, not an extensive tutorial of how to play the new format. But yeah, just rest assured, lots of content for the new Elfnote decks, for the new Power Patron decks, the new Archmage decks. Well, not so much the new decks, but just the new support and what they're able to facilitate within, you know, those archetypes. Interestingly enough, because we mentioned the chess lock, right? We mentioned the turn 0 chess lock as well. Something you have to be aware of. Medius is probably one of the Medius decks are probably one of the better decks at dealing with that quite comfortably, right? Because we can normal summon Medius, special summons a Neverdo. We're going to link both off for a Masquerena, for a Little Knight, right? Let's go Masquerena. Now, you wouldn't go for the new Power Patron here, just because when you link summon the new Power Patron, you have to have a Power Patron monster in your graveyard specifically if you want to get the search. So if we make the new link 2 here, we don't actually get to search. And it doesn't trigger on special summon, it triggers on link summon specifically, right? So making the new link 2 here isn't actually good, doesn't really do anything for us. We activate the trigger effect of Neverdo to special summon a Ginaldo. We pop to special summon the Genora. Activate the trigger effect to add back the Neverdo, or leave it in there, right? If you want to go for a different kind of play, if the next thing you want to try and do, you know, you have other cards in hand, right? Maybe you want to make yourself a Varudras, etc. But at this point, and this is the important bit, you would have a trigger, of course, to negate, not destroy, because the chess lock can't be destroyed, the cards can't be destroyed, but obviously they can be negated. So now in under 5 summons, you've negated the chess lock, you've still got 4 other cards in hand, right? Maybe we shuffle back Medius, shuffle back the Neverdo, bring Medius, still got 4 other cards in hand, yada yada yada, right? There's no shortage of combo options in this deck, as people know well enough by now. But yeah, I will be making full videos on this, many videos on this, the decks in general, once Chaos Origins properly drops. I just thought it was interesting that in the chess lock in particular, this is actually one of the better decks at quite comfortably dealing with that chess lock, and there will be videos to come on specifically what happens if you need to go down this route to beat the chess lock, and what you're able to do next. Last but certainly not least, we're looking at Ritual of Light and Darkness. Now, again, this is about some of the options we have for using one card to bridge into 2 separate engines at the same time. which is just, I don't know if it's beautiful or disgusting. Probably a little bit of both. You can let me know. And there's many different ways to bridge with this particular archetype, and I think a lot of the archetypes coming out, with the exception of Invoked, they can mix and match with each other. I think particularly the Chess and the Ritual of Light and Darkness decks can bridge very, very well, and there's various different ways, because as long as you can get to a level 8 synchro, you can full combo into either of those decks. So as an example, we can use Power Vice Dragon, its effect to special summon itself. Use that to grab a Soul Resonator. Normal summon Soul Resonator and use his effect to grab a Griffo. So he's basically a 1-card starter for your Ritual of Light and Darkness engine, because he gets the Griffo, which in itself sets up the whole Light and Darkness shenanigans. So what we'll do here, we'll just pause on this stuff, and we use Griffo, discard it to set Mind Shuffle. Always run 2, by the way. I've seen some lists running 1, which is just suicidal in my mind, because if you open it, then your deck doesn't work properly. I think you need 2, 1 in case it gets destroyed, but then also, because if you open 1, you've still got another in your deck. Opening the Mind Shuffle is just crippling at times. You really don't want to open it. So now what we do is we activate it, and we add Skull Archfiend of Chaos to hand, and then we discard it. It triggers to dump Light and Darkness Ritual, adding to hand Magician of Dark Chaos, Black Chaos. Use the effect in Grave of the Ritual card to add the Skull Archfiend back, and now we can activate this to Ritual Summon this by banishing this. Griffo acts as the full cost if we're banishing it from the graveyard. So now Magician of Dark Chaos, Black Chaos hits the field. Trigger effect, adding back a spell. At the minute we only have Light and Darkness Ritual, right? From here though, we've still got these little fellas, so what we can do is we go into Glitch, Clutch, Regainer. Glitch, Clutch, Null, Gainer. Activate the trigger effect to get Witness of the Angelechy, right? Pretty much what it is. Special summon it. We activate the trigger. And we're going to go for the Bastion. And we're going to go for the King, because we want a level 2 token. We get our level 2 token. We activate the trigger effect of the Shatranga to get ourselves a copy of the Disturbance. And now we're going to make a Light and Dark Chaos Angel by using either of these and going for the token. We do this with the token because now it's a Light and Dark Chaos Angel specifically. We won't activate the trigger effect. We can set the Disturbance, not too much value in it to be honest, because we don't really have the pawn on the field. Because Power Vice Dragon locks us into dark synchro monsters, we actually can't summon the pawn to the field. But what you're still left with here, from 1 card, remember, you'll still have 4 other cards in hand at this point. What you're left with here, or what you've got here, is you've got 3 cards in hand. You've got your Mind Shuffle and your Magician of Black Chaos all set up, right? We activate this again during their turn to get the other Ritual boss monster, and you just start shuffling them around. But we've also got a Light and Dark Chaos Angel on the field, and again, and this is the disgusting bit, they have to out this. They have to out your board in 5 monster effects or less, because the whole thing about the Mind Shuffle deck is that if you don't kill it, it kills you. You know, it's a very grindy deck. It's a very recursive, very grindy deck. If you don't kill it turn 2, then turn 3, you're in trouble. That's how the deck works, right? You can also do something similar with Elfnote as well. So Elfnote can combo into Elfnote and the Light and Darkness cards at the same time. And so what I'm going to be looking at once the physical cards arrive is what kind of brew can we create where we're basically comboing into both engines at the same time from a single card. But then more importantly, how do we turn that concept into a functioning deck? Is it even a functioning deck? I don't know yet, I need to test it. But how splashable some of these new cards are, and that includes, you know, Ritual of Light and Darkness, because any level 8 synchro, any level 8 synchro we can make, right? Crimson King gets you Crimson Calling. So you're basically able to go full Ritual of Light and Darkness combo, or full chess combo at any time, as long as you're able to get to a level 8 synchro, and plenty of engines can do that, right? Let's face it. I just wanted to show you this one though, because it's a fun little, fun little example of how one card again can combo into 2 separate engines at once. So if you've made it this far, hopefully that gives you a good idea as to what to expect. Basically, what's coming in Chaos Origins, what kind of content can you expect from the channel. If you've made it this far and you're not yet subscribed and you want to see more on the things I've just previewed, right, consider subscribing if you haven't already, because Chaos Origins it's an interesting set, I won't lie. I don't necessarily think it's going to completely revolutionise the meta, because I think you need a ban list in order to completely revolutionise the meta, because I think the decks that were really, really good are still going to be really, really good, but it's going to be very, very interesting because in TCG we do like to tinker and splash and basically just do weird stuff with our decks a bit more than the OCG do. At least that's my experience anyway. So I'm very, very interested to see, particularly with Ritual of Light and Darkness and the chess archetype. This card's phenomenal as well, by the way. I haven't forgot about this. So what can we do? You know, what kind of weird brews can we cook up without, of course, making our deck a bricky mess? Nobody wants that. And so, yeah, very, very, very excited. I will do my proper chefing, as we call it. I will be cooking up the good stuff once the physical cards arrived. Thanks for watching, and yeah,